Hello, today we're going to be talking about rolling back the mileage on GTRs, how to avoid buying a car that's happened to, how to catch that and how it happens and why it's so prevalent. So what happens when people are trying to roll back their mileage? Well, if you're not familiar with rolling back your mileage, I haven't done it, but I've been around enough of the car community all over the United States to know how it's done because people talk. Well, a lot of gauge clusters are mechanical, and if you reconfigure it, it looks almost like a watch. It almost looks like a crazy... You ever seen those little boxes, the musical boxes that you open up and they have all those little exposed mechanisms and they're turning? Believe it or not, that's how it looks. And essentially what people do is they put power tools on them and they go, arr! So they reverse it with a power tool because it takes a long time, right? Because essentially when you're driving, a lot of these cars had a cable, or they were utilizing the cable, or they were utilizing the same input from the speedometer to calculate when you're going to mileage. And all they were doing is reversing that cable, right? That connected to the transmission or wherever it's getting its input from, and just going back into miles. And that's why they call it roll back, right? All right, anyways, so what are people doing? They're not doing that. That's a lot of work. You gotta stand there and roll it back for hours and hours. Some people even put it in automatic mode or whatever. No. What are they doing? They're buying a gauge cluster with low miles and sticking it in the car. How do you know if that happened? You tell me how you would know if that happened. Well, there's a couple things you could realize what happened. First off, aftermarket gauge clusters, like the Nismo ones, red flag. Do they look amazing? Yes. Are they the perfect cover-up for rollback? Yes. So you've got to take that in consideration. Now, a couple of things you could do is you could go freaking Detective Sherlock Holmes on it and start looking at things. Look at the simple things that people would overlook that would wear. Look at the pedals, look at the footrest, look at the carpet. Look at things that are commonly used with the high mileage car. You know, gas caps, gas cap doors, door handles, certain paint areas. We're not talking about how to inspect a Skyline, because then we would talk about the rust and the rust issue and what to look for. But certain things should stand out. If you go up and the paint looks beautiful and the seats look great and the engine bay looks pretty nice, you still might get tricked. You need to look at the very particulars. Put it on the lift. Look at things that people would overlook that had high mileage. If you look at the car and things just look old, but then you see a lot of new stuff and it says it has 10,000 miles, it probably doesn't have 10,000 miles. I'll tell you what, when you look at a new car, almost every piece of hardware looks new. You're not going to get one piece of hardware that looks shiny and one that's oxidized. See, I do that with my car, right? I'm replacing the hardware slowly, right? But you can still find brackets, you can still find random things, plastic, you can still find all kinds of things that will tell you that the car is 100,000 miles. Now, luckily, it's a good 100,000 miles, but this car, you know, I'm not going to try to pass it off with 30, which it could, but I'm not going to do that because that's just wrong. All right, so let's think about Japan. We got to get nerdy so you guys can build a foundation and understand why this is so common and why you find this a lot in the marketplace. Their systems are not like ours. You've got to think about a 30-year-old car. And before I made this video, I really thought into perspective of how old this car really is when you're thinking about logistics. Like here recently, I was calling a dealership about a 2019 car, and they had to look into the information, go back and try to figure it out. And that was in English. That was a dealership that kind of still sold those cars, and it was recent. But if you try to get information on a 30-year-old car that was imported for Japan, think about those dealerships. Think about the people who worked in that era. Think about the systems, the logistics. They didn't have software and computer systems that managed service records like they do now. Most likely they had folders. Most likely they maybe had a very basic localized network with that information. Because if you don't know about dealerships, they're not always connected. They're owned by individual persons or companies. That's why they have certain names like Bob's Ford or Jill's Honda or Barry's Acura or whatever. So what that tells you is that you can't do forensics on certain cars. So what happens? It's pretty much Wild Wild West, where there wasn't a social security number. There wasn't fingerprints. There wasn't a way. All you had to do was go to another state and you had a fresh start. So you could go rob a bank in Texas and go to Florida and Most likely no one knew you. So what happens when you bring the GTR over, it's kind of like the Wild Wild West. Nobody knows its history, nobody knows its past, so it could be a brand new person. And if we related a social security number to the mileage, it came into the United States with a fresh start, it's got fresh papers, and most likely it either wants you to know its history or it doesn't want you to know its history. And in many cases, people who are trying to make money like they did in Wild Wild West and I guess all of humanity's civilization history, people are going to find loopholes and they're going to exploit them. So they realize that you as the buyer you just can't call, hello Nissan, I'd like you to tell me the history on this 30-year-old car and tell me everything about it. They're going to be like, that dealership's not even there. People don't even work there anymore. So I know there's a lot of knowledgeable people. I was actually talking to somebody on eBay about it, and he gave me the idea about the footrest and the pedals. So I do appreciate that. I always want to give credit where credit's due. But if you have any ideas how to find out how a car has, how to tell if a car is older or newer, let me know. But at the end of the day, you guys should be informed about how to look out for cars that might have a rollback odometer on it. Well guys, thank you for watching. We appreciate it. You take care, stay safe. We'll talk to you soon.